tired and I'm weary, but I must toil on till the Lord comes and calls me away. Where the morning is bright and the Lamb is the light, and the night is as fair as the day. There will be peace in the valley for me someday. There will be peace in the valley for me.
The Move. My heart felt like it was dragging on the dusty gravel road. My heart was ripping apart in sorrow as I gazed back at the houses, smoke curling from the blackened chimneys of the small town Escalante. That place held all my childhood friends and beloved grandmother and grandfather Barney. I tried desperately to hold back the water brooks that glistened in my eyes, turned my gaze to my mother, her face set with determination, yet uncertainly held a hint of fear in her soft blue eyes. Tears streamed down Tony's pale face — we called Lottie Tony sometimes — as she cuddled Clem close to her. Freeland's face held a look of confusion as he held onto my arm to steady himself. Lorene and Merle sobbed quietly as they huddled next to each other. "It'll be all right," Mother sighed, as a sniffle escaped from her shaking body. "Roy's taking care of us, and my folks will help us." Anger seemed to kindle like a small white flame in my chest toward my wayward father, who'd deserted his family and left us to fend for ourselves once again. The minutes turned to hours as we made our way across washboard roads of the mountain terrain that brought us to what seemed to me to be a large city of Richfield, Utah. The depression loomed like a massive black cloud on the horizon across the American continent. It flowed from the big city into every little nook and cranny of the tiny towns that held the struggling masses. Like us, my grandpa and grandma Nielsen weren't in much better condition than we were with what they made from Johns Valley. Grandpa Nielsen's operation really placed him in the hole. Yet they were there to take the bedraggled bunch of nomads into their hearts to help us as best they could. Grandpa Nielsen and my uncles had placed an old granary on their northeast lot, on 690 East and 200 North. This placed a so-called roof over our heads. Mother bought it from my Uncle George with a few doggy lambs she had. Grandpa Nielsen would look me straight in the eye and say time and time again, yeah, you got to be the man of the family," as I began working with him in the fields below Richfield. In return for my long, hard day's labor, my Grandma Nielsen would cook up a large fry pan of fried potatoes and bacon drippings. Occasionally she'd add bacon or sausage for my brothers and sisters' dinner each day. As for Grandpa and I, Grandmother would send us into the fields with some of the best homegrown whole wheat bread and homemade cheese you could ever eat. I know I'd asked him several times before lunch each day, "Is it time to eat yet?" My mouth watered in anticipation for such a delicious, filling meal. I liked my Uncle Charlie. One day he came up to me and said, "Hey, you want to hear a ditty?" And as he slid his rough, worn hand through my dark brown hair. "Sure," I replied. "If you were a horsefly and I an old gray mare, I'd stand and let you bite me and never move a hair." I said, "I've had a horsefly bite me before. I don't know any horse that would let one bite it. Besides, they have tails and manes to shoo them away." "Yeah, maybe so, he replied laughingly. "I bet you won't forget that one, though." "I did have an old mare," I said, with a catch in my voice. "He was like my best friend." "That's the type of horse to have," Charlie agreed. "I've had a couple like that myself." Uncle Charlie was good to us kids. He was in World War I. While he was over there, a soldier next to him hollered, "Gas!" And Charlie didn't get his gas mask on in time, and the gas canister stuck him in his helmet. It hit Charlie and knocked him partially unconscious. He was late getting his mask on. In fact, someone probably put it on for him. One of his lungs was bad from it for the rest of his life. He was always short of breath. He got sores on his legs from it, too. Grandpa Nielsen bought a Jersey cow from Old Man Ogden. It didn't have a tail, so we called it Bob, for Bobtail. Bob got away from Grandpa. It was a sight to behold as Bob ran through the back door of Grandpa's house and out the front. I thought I laughed my head off at the spectacle of Grandpa running after it and screaming who knows what in Danish. Bob was running back to Joe's farm where it had lived. We decided to get it in Joe's trailer and bring it back. I chased Bob on a horse, but in the excitement, I tumbled off and fell in the ditch. The man on a motorcycle came to free me and laughingly helped me and the horse up. Lynn Stewart came to the rescue to lead the determined cow home. Bob dug her 4 hooves into the dirt, and Lynn couldn't budge her. It was like a funny Charlie Chaplin movie with all kinds of people running here and there trying to catch that darn cow. We finally got Bob in the trailer and brought her back, put a big long chain on Bob's neck, and we hooked the chain on an iron wheel that was in the lucerne patch. We could never turn Bob loose after that. Ma placed an ad in the paper to take in washing and ironing. She worked for anyone willing to pay her a day's wage. This was a similar ad found in the Richfield Reaper that was placed several years later, in July 6, 1938. This was years later, though. For laundry or house cleaning, call Ms. Lily Barney at phone 305. Lottie seemed to become more and more fragile each day as the unseen rickets took a toll on her frail body. Yet she took over the mothering of the little brothers, trying to keep them fed and clean. In the meantime, my father, Afton, had taken a job at the local pool hall as a bartender. He lived on the other side of town with his new bride. Most of the townspeople didn't have a clue we were related, which my father felt just fine about. On one occasion, my brothers and sisters and I were walking down the main street, window shopping, wishing and dreaming about things out of our reach. "Oh," Lorene said as she spied a dress in the shop window. "Someday I'm going to wear a dress like that." "And go to moving picture shows," Lottie said as she gazed longingly at the advertisement for the Lyric Theater. Wood and coal were precious commodities at our home. Oftentimes, Freeland and I would go down to the train tracks, to the place where coal was transferred onto trucks and wagons off train cars. And as Freeland and I were scavenging the precious coal, a stranger that was doing the same thing said, "So, who are your folks, boy?" "My folks are divorced. My mother's Lily Barney and my dad's Afton Barney on the other side of town," I explained. "Can't be that's your pa," he said. "That nice young man's too young to be your father. Besides, he has a right smart-looking woman for a wife. Your ma's got to be twice her age." "Maybe so," I said, "but you never had the right to leave us. Even orphans' fathers probably cared for and loved them better than ours did." Freeland and I ran home with what little coal we had gleaned. I felt the hatred for my so-called father scorching my stomach, like hot coals scalding my insides, as we darted toward the safety of our granary. Ma was trying desperately to make sure we kept life and limb together.
There'll be peace